Hey, and welcome to a new Dark Souls Remastered challenge run. Today we're gonna see if you can beat the game when every fog wall leads to a random location. Okay, obviously it can be beaten. I'm not the first person to do this, and it's kind of the entire point of this mod, but it sounded fun, so I'm gonna try it anyways. I made my new character, named Nightcrawler for his weird teleportation powers, and picked the deprived class with the master key. And we start at the bonfire at Sun's Fortress. Before we get any further, here are the settings that I'm using. I've randomized literally every fog wall in the game, turned on enemy scaling, started in a random location, and turned off the requirement for the 4 Lord Souls. I feel like that last one might need a little bit of an explanation. In this mod, the only way to randomize the location of the Kiln of the First Flame and Gwyn's boss room is to deselect this option. Otherwise, you'll just hop down from Firelink like usual. I'm still going to be collecting all 4 Lord Souls. I just thought it would be a little more interesting to include Gwyn's boss room in the randomizer. Speaking of Gwyn, let's get a checklist of what we need to find in order to beat the game. We'll need to find the boss rooms for Gwyn, Nito, Bed of Chaos, Seath, the 4 Kings, and Sif, as well as the Chamber of the Sunlight Princess for the Lord Vessel. And now the search begins. In the first 10 minutes, I find myself in Orlando getting beat down from one of the bridge gargoyles, and seriously doubting the math behind this mod's enemy scaling. They are definitely scaled, but there's only so much you can do to make an endgame mini-boss balanced to be one of the first encounters of the game. So I decided to leave that for later. After rescuing Laurentius for the first time in at least a couple playthroughs, the next encounter is Ornstein and Smo. Awesome! I'm at half health, don't have any Estus, and have gotten a grand total of 2 levels since I started, so there's no way I'm beating them here. But I can at least do a damage test, and oh hell no. Nope, not today. 21 damage is gonna get a big ol' fuck no from me. We'll be leaving this for later as well. Finally, a reasonably scaled, nice and easy fight. Lord Nito of the Dead. I ended up dying the first time I found him and coming back after I gotten a weapon with some more reach and some armor, but this is way more reasonable. Still not great damage, but we're using a base level starting weapon and are naked, so with some marginally better gear and maybe a handful of levels, this fight is perfectly doable. It probably seems like I'm jumping around and skipping over stuff, and that's because I am. I spent 90% of this run just sprinting through areas trying to map out as many fog gates as I could, to try to find important or at least useful items. On that note, hi Sif! She's also got way too much health to deal with right now, but at least we know she's here, so we can easily come back to pick up Artorias' ring. Bye Sif! Areas like Firelink Shrine are always exciting because lots of fog walls means lots of opportunities to find new shit, or mark things off our checklist. I did end up buying the Pyromancy Flame and all the useful spells from Laurentius at this point, but I didn't end up using them at any point in the run. I ended up in the Chasm of the Abyss for a bit and freed Baby Sif. Not that we'll need to fight Manus at any point in this run, but Puppy is sad, and what kind of monster wouldn't free her when given the opportunity? In the Caves of Invisible Bullshit, I got assassinated while I was updating my map. All the way back in Sun's Fortress, I freed Big Hat Logan for no real reason, I guess. It's not like I'll be putting levels into intelligence to be able to buy from him. More importantly, I got a Man-Serpent Greatsword from a random drop, which will be my weapon for the entirety of the run. Well, I've got armor, a bigger weapon, and a handful of levels, so let's go see how we fare against Nito. After a admittedly rocky start, turns out we fare pretty well against him. Not having a weapon with divine damage means that the skeletons do keep respawning, but they die with a single hit when they're not getting killed by their own boss. Nito himself isn't too different from a normal run. Since he's scaled for early game and we're in the early game, it feels pretty balanced, and with the reach of the Greatsword, I'm able to hit him fairly consistently, even when I was trying to smack him through his cloak. First Lord Soul acquired. Much easier than I thought it would be. If only they could all be this simple. While exploring around, I was able to pick up the residence key and the repair box from the undead merchant, so if I ever find Griggs, it won't be an absolute fucking nightmare trying to free him like it was in the last randomizer run I did. Also, I run into my first fog wall that's sealed in New Londo ruins. I'll run into several more of these later. They all lead to somewhere in the lower half of New Londo, and to go through them I'll have to track down the Lord Vessel and break the New Londo seal. 4 kings are locked behind one of these fog walls. Going through the fog wall that normally leads to the Moonlight Butterfly actually leads to Priscilla. Luckily, I don't have any reason to kill her, so the Snow Princess can live for now, and I can just jump off a cliff straight into the Sanctuary Garden bonfire, which in turn leads smack dab in the center of the Iron Golem's boss arena, where I instantly get knocked on my ass with the first shockwave. You know you're in for a bad time when you don't even see the yellow damage indicator on the boss's health bar. So after a few attempts where I didn't even get kind of close, I decided I'd come back to this later. From one boss, backtracking to another. I'm now strong enough to deal with Sif, using the usual strategy of standing under her feet and smacking her little tootsies with my sword until she died. So now I've got the Artorias rings, and am one step closer to being able to get the 4 kings. I finally tracked down my first blacksmith, and the one I'll be using most often because he's fairly close to a warpable bonfire. Also, yeah, for this recording session, my dumbass forgot to switch the scene in OBS from my streaming setup to my recording setup, so my webcam was recorded along with the gameplay. Throughout my time playing with this mod, I had fairly consistent issues with things not loading in properly or taking a long-ass time to load in, including this time when I got stuck on the wrong side of a fog wall after walking straight through it. A bit later, I found myself in the Undead Parish, where I was able to pick up the first Firekeeper soul. Coincidentally, the intended first Firekeeper soul. Nice. From here, I was also able to get to the Bed of Chaos, which was fine, or as fine as it can be. Nothing to say about this. I'm pretty sure this fight is the same in literally every run, no matter what type of challenge mod or loadout you're using. After the entirety of Ulasil and the ghost-infested New Londo, I go through an unassuming fog wall and... oh no. Oh god, please no. Gwyn can't really be here, right? This is so much worse than the usual boss run. I'm gonna be real with you. At the time of writing this part of the script, I haven't finished the run, and this is the sole reason why. This is an absolutely soul-crushing boss run. But that's not something I need to be concerned about quite yet. After all, I've still got 2 more Lord Souls to collect, so I decided to do something less emotionally devastating. Ornstein and Smo. Seriously, since this is incredibly close to the start point of the run, they're scaled way down to have way less health. So with my sword upgraded a bit and a fair few levels under my belt, they go down with not too much trouble. I was incredibly disheartened to realize that there are fog walls in front of each of the elevators that go up to Guinevere, so it'll still be a while before I'm able to grab the Lord Vessel. One of the fog walls led to Gwendolyn, which is a dead end with no important items, but killing the femboy of the series gives a pretty decent handful of souls, so it's still worth doing. Weirdly, the drop down to the skeleton blacksmith isn't a randomized warp point. I kind of figured it would be, since there's a cutscene every time you drop down. But that gives me a marginally more convenient access to a second blacksmith and allows me to buy the weaponsmith toolbox. I may have forgotten that I bought this and spend the entire game running back to the blacksmith in New Londo, but I don't think we need to talk about that. Since he also sells Titanite shards, I upgraded my sword to +5, which is max level for now, so I'll be doing a bit more damage at least. I found the Seal Keeper, and then had my heart broken when I remembered that you need to have the Lord Vessel to get this key to the seal. I don't know if I ever realized that you need the Lord Vessel first, because when I play this game normally, 4 Kings is typically one of the last things I go do. I did make a quick pit stop to grab the Cursebite ring, so that'll be one less thing to worry about when I eventually track down Seath. I got incredibly annoyed at having to trek through this awful fucking labyrinth of a map, so I decided to go back and clean up the Iron Golem for a change of pace. My damage was still pretty ass, but I've got a great sword, so poise damage is a thing, and I knocked the large lad off the bridge. And turns out I've got a little bit of a boss rush on my hands, with Ceaseless up next. I used the cheese strat to not risk having to run back here, and that should open up a couple more fog walls to explore too. Many hours in, 2 Lord Souls acquired, and I'm able to ring the first Bell of Awakening. And then I killed a Silent Demon. Gotta love randomizers. Well, the concept of randomizers at least. I'm gonna talk about my feelings regarding this particular randomizer more at the end. After some wandering, this time through Blighttown, I found the Centipede Demon. I sat in front of the fog wall, panic scrolling through my item hotbar like a dumbass, and didn't have time to get to the good area to fight him in, so I just kinda stuck myself in a corner and hoped I could do enough damage to kill the thing before he knocked me into the lava. I did. And the orange charred ring opens up even more areas to explore. A little farther down this particular pathway, and I finally found the Lord Vessel. I checked my save file here, and apparently was only about 6 hours in at this point. It felt like at least twice that. I thought that having the Lord Vessel would make this run actually fun, and it helped, just not enough. Now we can finally open the New Londo seal and start checking all those sealed New Londo ruins fog walls that I couldn't access earlier, to try to find the 4 kings. I did find the 4 kings, and my first attempt went not great. To prepare, I went and killed Havel, who's been a thorn in my side for the entire run, as I have to run up and down his tower to get just about anywhere, so this is long overdue. With Havel's ring equipped, drastically upping my equipment load, I put on the heaviest, poised tankiest armor I can without fat rolling and head back into the 4 kings. One upside of the Serpent Man Greatsword is that it's upgraded with regular Titanite, which means that you can apply resins to it for damage buffs. With my beefier armor and zappy sword, the first 3 kings go down easy. The lightning buff ran out before I was able to kill the final king, but by that point I had plenty of Estus left to just tank my way through the last of the health bar. Now all that's left is to find Seath. This took me 4 fucking ever. I finally tracked the naked glowing bastard down at the end of a 3-boss gauntlet. First up was Quelaag, who went down on my second try due to the power of lava-spitting RNG. I think coming in from the opposite side of the arena might kind of break the AI just a little bit. Then it was Taurus Demon, who died to a plunge attack and a handful of sword swipes, like usual. And finally, the holder of the final Lord Soul. I'm pretty sure Seath was scaled to be a lower level than he normally is, because I actually did pretty decent damage to him. I just ran around and smacked his front tentacles till he died. Now, the only thing left is to kill Gwyn. Gwyn does not seem to scale regardless of how early you find him, so I am dramatically underpowered for this fight. And here's the thing. Admittedly, this is, at least in part, a skill issue. If I practice enough, I could beat him like this. But every time I die, I have to make the 5-minute run back to his boss arena to try again, and at this point, I was so sick of this run that I decided I'd leave it here. Because if I didn't, this video would never come out. If this video happens to do particularly well, I might come back and finish this fight, but honestly, it just isn't fun. It's frustrating, and not the usual kind of frustrating that comes with the Dark Souls experience. Not the kind where it pushes you to do better, because you know the feeling you get when you finally beat the challenge will be worth it. No. This playthrough was frustrating in a way that made me not want to even think about this game, let alone actually playing it and killing Gwyn or slogging my way through more of the map to try to get stronger. I was so excited to start this run. Coming fresh out of the absolute blast of a time that was the item randomizer, I had very high expectations, but God, this playthrough was just miserable. The fact that you can't warp to every bonfire, mixed with the loading issues that I had consistently, having loading times of upwards of 3 or 4 minutes sometimes, as the game had to render things from the opposite side of the game world. It was just agonizing. So, can you beat Dark Souls Remastered when every fog wall is randomized? Yeah, of course, people have done it before. People with a lot more patience than me. But I don't think I'm going to try to force myself to complete this run because it's really just not worth it. Anticlimactic, I know, but this is gonna do it for this video. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time with a challenge run that I will actually finish. Bye.